Hello, I'm Bonnie Hovel, and I am a clinical social worker as well as a transition life consultant working with TLC services. I'd like to talk with you today about the control box. I'll give you an example of how I've used it in the past, and I hope that you'll be able to consider some ways of using it yourself. So what is the control box? It's really a problem-solving method. If you're feeling stuck or you have an issue or a problem, it's something that helps you triage. What things do you have control over? What things do you not have control over? And helps you take action on those things you can control, which is a lot more effective. Here you can see the 4 quadrants of the control box. It looks at whether you have control, whether you do not have control, and whether you're taking actions or not taking actions. So in the upper left quadrant, that's your personal power box. That's where you're acting on the things where you do have control. In the lower right is where you're not acting and on things you don't have control over. So we'll go into more detail on the next slide. Here we can see again the upper left power box, personal power box. That's where we have control, we're taking action. So our feelings, our thoughts, our behaviors are all going towards those things that we do have control over. That's where we have the most choice. And if we realize we do not have control over something, the ideal is if we then go over to the lower right corner quadrant and let go of those things. And you can see the serenity prayer here. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So both of those boxes diagonally are healthy places to be. But then the lower left and upper right are more difficult and less healthy. So in the lower left, it's learned helplessness. We're being passive. We think we don't have a choice, or we fail to see what our choices might be. And if we really think about it, we can probably figure out some things that we could take action on, because when we're there, we do have control. We're just not doing anything about it. And in the upper right corner, where we don't have control, but we're working anyway to try and affect change, that's where we find ourselves striving. We may feel hopeless or helpless. We may get to a point where we're angry or frustrated or even depressed because we don't have control, but we're trying anyway. So that's not a healthy place to be. We want to work towards being over in the upper left or lower right. So just to give you an example, when my mother was in her final years of life, my father was taking care of her. And it was getting more and more difficult. And we finally, as a family, made a decision that we had to place her in a care facility. Well, this was a relief in some ways, but it was also very difficult because all of a sudden we felt like we weren't doing enough to help her. We kept going into her room and rearranging it and redecorating it. Well, that wasn't really helping her. She wasn't that aware of those things at that point. So we went to a social worker as a family, and that's where I first learned about the control box. She helped us see that there were things we could still control and things we needed to let go of. So what we could still control was mostly being with my mother, visiting her, being with her, spending time with her. We could also be her advocate. The care facility workers would know that she had a family who cared for her if we were there visiting her. And if she needed something that we didn't feel she was getting, we could talk to people. We could talk to the team of people that was helping her. So this really was a huge relief for my entire family. We all felt a lot better because we knew we were taking action on those things we could control. So think a minute about an area or two areas of your life or your work where you feel stressed or stuck, or you just have a problem and you haven't figured out how to deal with it. So one example I think many people could relate to is, let's say you want to exercise, you know you need to exercise, but you're just not doing it. So let's see how we might be able to work on that. So let's say regarding exercise, you're in the lower left quadrant. You have control over doing something for exercise, but you're not acting. Here are a few questions that might be helpful in guiding you. First of all, what choices might there be? Maybe you can brainstorm with yourself. Do you need expensive exercise equipment? Perhaps not. Maybe there are some things you hadn't considered. Maybe you could watch a yoga recording on YouTube or something like that. Who could I talk to for help in gaining clarity? Maybe you have friends, family members, or neighbors who could give you ideas or tell you what they're doing, and that might be helpful. And then what support do I need? Maybe you need a partner, someone that would just call you, or you could call them and say, how are you doing with your exercise this week? But just consider what support you might need to stay accountable and to really make it a habit. Or let's say, regarding exercise again, that I do not have control, but I'm acting. So maybe you're someone who tries all sorts of things. Maybe you've tried 10 different types of exercise, and then you've gotten to the point where you tell yourself or tell others, I just don't exercise because I don't like it. Maybe you've stressed yourself too much with that. So ask yourself, what am I gaining by striving to act? That's kind of a psychological question. Maybe you're helping yourself have some excuses so that you don't have to do this thing that you know you want to do and need to do and will be a healthy thing for you to do. And then can I make a not to do list? Perhaps you can, on your not to do list would be something like, well, not try something that's too complicated that I know I won't enjoy. Things like that could go on your not to do list. And then what support do I need to be objective and plan ahead? Again, there's so many materials out there to help us with these things. And you could decide, for example, to just try something 5 or 10 minutes a day to get started. And then once it becomes more of a habit, you could increase it. So those are the kinds of questions that could help you get out of that stuck position or solve your problem. I'm sure you can think of many other things to use this on. Here is a second example about what to do when you're feeling out of control in terms of the coronavirus. And here we are dealing with a pandemic. Here are some things you have control over in the upper left quadrant. You can focus on the positive. You don't have to let negativity take over. Try to be calm and careful, but not fearful, and be kind to others. You can protect your own energy and use it for things that you can do. And it's important to learn the facts, but you may want to control the time that you spend watching the news. That can get overly negative. Follow the guidelines. You can control how you're doing that yourself to help prevent the spread of disease and to help the community. You can stay in touch with loved ones. You can do that from a distance by phone. You can do it by video calls. And find some things to do at home, maybe even some fun things. Try a new recipe. Play a game with your spouse, those types of things. And then the things to let go of are the things we really don't have control over, such as other people's actions, behaviors, other people's motives. We can't control what supplies are going to be at the stores. So instead of getting worried about that, how much toilet paper there is, how much chicken, then it's better to step back and realize that we will get what we can as we need it. We can order online and have deliveries. And we need to also let go of knowing what will happen. It's a time of uncertainty, so acknowledging that will help us let go of that. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to the control box, and I hope you'll be able to use it as a gift to yourself to help yourself in some area of your life. Thank you for spending this time with us today. We hope that you will keep checking our website for interesting articles and videos. There's a catalog there where you can see other resources that are available. Thanks again, and see you later.